What's good, guys? Welcome back to Behind the Dugouts, and I hope you are keeping well. And the question that is on everyone's mind at the moment is, should he stay or should he go? And this is in regards to Chelsea's striker, Nicolas Jackson, a player that's not done himself any favours of recent times. We had the incident against Newcastle, picking up that red card, putting us down to 10 men in a time where we were fighting for top four, a time where we needed the players the most. He went and let everyone down. And then he, went and made it worse in the Club World Cup by picking another red card against Flamengo, in another important fixture. So he hasn't done himself any favours. And obviously, with the new acquisitions in Liam Delap and now João Pedro, who both have had a really, really good tournament, he's found himself a little bit out of favour, slowly, down the pecking order for me, as I've mentioned in the past, now the third choice striker. So I wanted to sort of touch on this topic. We know the club have apparently set an £100 million asking price for Nicolas Jackson. Do I think he's worth £100 million? Absolutely not. But this is what they have set currently. So we know in their mind there potentially could be, the opportunity of a sale with this player. And there's lots of rumours coming out with various clubs, recently Aston Villa and Man United all sniffing around for Jackson's signature. So I wanted to take a look at this from two different perspectives. One from the club's perspective and the other from, the player's perspective, Nicolas Jackson himself. So from the club's perspective, it's clear that they don't feel the need to sell him. They're not really looking actively to sell him, but they would be willing if the right offer come in. Now, as I mentioned, they've set the 100 million price tag. And I believe this was, aim high. Clubs are probably going to come in around 60 to 70 million. And I think if someone did come in around that price, the club would take it. And I think 60 to 70 million pound for Jackson would be a fair price. And we would have made an incredible amount of profit, being I think he came in for around 32 or 35 million pounds himself. So there's lots of frustrations with the player, and it's evident that the club are getting more and more frustrated as time goes on. He, in terms of output, he's had an okay-ish 2 years. It's not amazing. It's not Chelsea number 9 starting striker numbers. I think his first season was pretty good under Poch, but the biggest problem Jackson had was the amount of chances he was missed. I think he missed a total of about 16, 17 big chances, chances that should be goals in that season. So he could have taken what was an okay-ish tally and, increase it dramatically if he scored at least half of those big chances he missed. And it was the same again this season. Started off really, really well, dipped, which again, a lot of the players dipped from December onwards. But in terms of his goals, they dried out. Even his assists, they dried out. And he finished the season a total of about 34 goal involvements over, 60-something games. And that's obviously including all competitions. But again, he missed about 19 to 20 big chances. So it's something that he, in fact, got worse on this season. We've created more chances for him. He's still missing more. I know he's not outperforming his XG. And I know a lot of people like myself, they're okay to look at, but it doesn't tell you the complete picture. You can't just base a player on stats alone. But in terms of his goal output and as a striker, I'm not looking for a striker to be involved in everything, be involved in link-up play, do all of this. All we want a striker to be able to do, his bread and butter, what he's paid the bucks for, what we, pay the transfer fee for, is for them to come in and score goals and, put the majority of their chances away. And at the moment, based on Jackson's statistics, yes, he's scoring, but he's underperforming his XG. He's still missing an incredible amount of chances. And he's now he's being petulant. He's picking up yellow cards all the time. He's picking up red cards now, to add to that. So all in all, we've got an okay-ish striker that's not performing to where we want him to be, not producing the amount of goals that we want him to expect, and has disciplinary problems, which for the club, I can understand why they're getting frustrated. And if they can potentially get a sizable profit out of it and make a good money that they can go and reinvest this, because again, the likes of Liam Delap, he came in when, the start of the Club World Cup and he did really well. He was looking good. Obviously, he got himself suspended in the Club World Cup, but he was looking like he was going to offer more than what Jackson had already offered. And then we went out and, got João Pedro, who's just come in and absolutely wiped the floor with both of them completely. So for me, Jackson's nowhere near the starting spot, and he's got a hell of a lot to do to get in front of Liam Delap for the second place spot. But it's not to say that he can't do it. It's not to say that all hope is gone. He clearly needs to work on his disciplinary side. To stop getting these stupid yellow cards, stop getting sent off, and he needs to improve on his finishing. But as a third choice striker, it's not the end of the world. I just don't think he has the mental capability and the quality yet. Again, he's still quite young, but the quality that we expect a Chelsea starting number 9 to have. But, as I mentioned, the club, I don't think are actively looking to sell him. It's not like they're throwing him on the shop market as they're doing with a lot of other players. So it's definitely, I would say it's 50-50. I think the offer comes in, he's gone. And if I look at the player's perspective, again, Jackson's now probably looking at this. I know he's made the comments to say that he wants to fight for his spot, that he understands the frustration of everybody. He's taking the criticism on board, and he wants to fight against, Liam Delap and João Pedro for that number 1 spot to prove what he can do and get back to the heights that he, did hit under Poch at a portion of the season. And the same, he did play the first part of the season really well under Maresca and was scoring regularly and get involved in assists as well. And he wants to get back to that, which I'm all for. I love it when players come out going, look, I know I'm not doing well at the moment, but I want to get back to where I was, and I want to fight for my spot, because that's all we want. We want players to fight. As I said, competition is incredibly healthy for the squad, for the players, and how they develop. And he seems, at least from his comments, that he wants to fight. But he could also be looking at this, going, look, I've played up front, starting for the last 2 years at Chelsea Football Club, and these two have just come in, and albeit they've, performed really well, but now they've knocked me down to the third spot. And do I want to be sat at the third choice striker, where I could go and make the move to, in this instance, we've got, Aston Villa and Man United that are currently sniffing around Jackson, potential suitors for him, where I could go and be a number 1 starter, or at least if it's not number 1, number 2. I think Aston Villa are looking at potentially the sale of Ollie Watkins. Last season they sold John Duran. So for me, if he went to Aston Villa, he would be number 1. I think if he went to United, there is a case for him to be number 1 there over Rasmus Højlund, because he's not having a particularly good time. But it's what Jackson, he could be looking at, going like, is there a point in me just sitting here being number 3 when I can go be number 1 elsewhere? And again, he's taken a lot of stick, and he's going to continue to get stick from the Chelsea fans until we see an improvement, until we see something, different from him. Has he improved on his goal scoring ability? Has he improved on his discipline side of things? Because we're always going to have that in the back of our mind. Is he going to come off the bench and, do a stupid thing as he did against Flamengo and get himself sent off and put us down to 10 and put us back in that situation again? It's always going to be in the back of our minds until he's had a considerable amount of time playing with no, silliness. Of course, a striker's not going to score every single shot, otherwise he'd be the most clinical finisher in the entire world. So I don't expect that, but he definitely needs to improve on his XG. He should be outperforming his XG, and he needs to convert at least 50% more of those big chances missed. But I would say that if a team came in and offered, Jackson a contract and offered the opportunity to move and be number 1, I do think that Jackson would consider it, and I do think he would move. I don't think this is a foregone conclusion, even though he's come out and said that he wants to fight for a spot. I think if a club comes in for him and he's open to listen to the offers, and as long as it, matches his wage, he will leave. I do believe that. I don't think he would be happy to be third choice. When you look at third choice strikers, it's usually in place of a youngster like a Mark Yu or a Shima Waker, something like that. It's a player that can learn off the the two older ones, the two starters, um, and then get the odd minutes in maybe the Carabao Cup or you know games like that. So for me, Jackson is not a player that I think would be happy to sit as a third choice. But again, I'd happy to be proven wrong. And for me personally, do I think Jackson should go? Would I like to keep Jackson? Yes, I would like to keep Jackson. I again, from just not thinking about what the player, if he thinks he should not be a third choice striker, for us to have a striker that's, because if I look at João Pedro, Liam Delap, and Jackson last season, all of them gave a similar output in terms of goals scored and assists. So if we've got three strikers on the bench that can produce the same or similar numbers to each other, you're looking at, let's just say they all produce 15 goals, and across our three strikers, we've got 45 goals just from the strikers alone. Not saying that's going to happen, but I would rather have those three as an option than have a younger striker with inexperience that's not going to get much minutes. Just from my perspective, because we want the competitiveness, we want the option, and Jackson does provide something a little bit different to the likes of Liam Delap. He's versatile and he can play on the wing. I know we haven't used him there, but he can play it, so he does fit the versatility mold of the way that we want to play, and he does give everything. He's a willing runner. He presses high. So in terms of what he can give to the team, I would still be happy to keep him. I think he would be a good option to come off the bench and to keep that competitiveness, to keep that fight up between those three strikers. However, for him, if I take it from him personally as a player, I think he would be better to move. Just as a player, to go and get minutes. I think the damage is done. I think the players that have come in are ahead of him and probably will continue to be ahead of him. I mean, if João Pedro keeps up the form that he produced in the Club World Cup, he's going to be the starter. And if Liam Delap keeps pushing the way that he's going, he will be second choice. So for the player personally, it would make more sense to go and try out a different adventure, a different challenge in a team that might be more suited to him. I think Jackson is more a mid-table striker than a top Premier League striker. I think he would do well maybe in one of the top sides in La Liga, slower pace, not as intense, not as physical. But I think in the Premier League, he would be suited to a Aston Villa. I think he would serve them pretty well in the way that Unai Emery wants to play. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this one, guys? Do you think that Jackson should stay? Do you think he would, be happy to stay as a third choice? Do you think it's best for him now to make the move? We can get that money in and potentially go reinvest it and bring in another striker of similar quality, similar ilk of what we've brought in so far that can provide competition and maybe less of the disciplinary issues and more of hitting his output, hitting his XG, and not missing as many big chances. And there has been a few attacking options mentioned recently, which I'm going to go into detail in later videos, in the likes of Morgan Rogers and Garnacho, and Morgan Rogers being one of the players that I would definitely take at the club. I think he can provide us a lot in terms of versatility, in terms of technical ability and quality on the ball. He's also a player that is playing for one of the teams that are interested in Nicolas Jackson at Aston Villa. So there is that potential the club could, sell him and bring in someone that would be better suited. But, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, guys. Please drop a comment below on what you think would be the best option for Jackson. But for now, guys, that's all from me. If you are enjoying the content, please hit that like button. Put a comment. Feedback is always greatly appreciated. And for now, take care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next one.